Welcome to Fireside Nets with Spen Harris, the #1 Brooklyn Nets podcast for all Nets news, information, reactions, interviews, guest appearances, food recommendations in the tri-state area, and so much more. I am joined by the show's longtime and semi-permanent co-host, my brother Nick. How goes it, little brother?
Well, I'm a semi, so I'm good.
Yeah, well, I was a lot less than semi-excited about this Brooklyn Nets regular season. Final record was 32 wins, 50 losses. That's right, 5-0. 50 games that I watched that the Nets were unable to win this year. They finished the regular season 3-3 with losses to Sacramento and then to close out the season to New York and Philadelphia. They did have a win against Indiana somewhere in there, in addition to wins against Detroit and Toronto. Overall, really disappointing season for a team that many thought might make the playoffs. People thought they were a 6 seed. At the very worst, people thought, hey, maybe they're a play-in team. No, they finished outside of the play-in. I think they finished 11 in the East, so Atlanta got that 10 seed. Overall, Nick, I want you to give me a letter grade A through F for this Brooklyn Nets season.
A D, I guess. I mean, 32 and 50 is pretty bad. I guess in the grand scheme of things, 11th isn't the worst in the Eastern Conference. Obviously, there were teams like the Pistons that were a lot worse. But yeah, I mean, this is almost as bad as it gets to have talent, to fire your coach, to not know how to rotate and who to use and where to put people, changing your starting lineup frequently. I mean, this isn't as bad as it gets, and it doesn't help to watch the New York Knicks have the reverse record and finish second at 50 and 32, and probably the best Knicks basketball we've seen in 10 years. I don't know. So I'd give it a D. The only thing worse would be if we finished, I guess, below 11th, but it almost feels worse that the expectations were higher. If we went in knowing it was kind of a rebuilding, restructuring season, and that we were expecting like the Spurs to take a huge hit. Hey, the Spurs are feeling like $1 million freaking bucks right now. They had a terrible season, but the potential in Wemby is through the freaking roof. And they rounded the season out great. We had the adverse effect. We started the season kind of in that 7th, 8th, 9th play-in position and got worse and worse with each coming week, and looked more lost and more lost as time went on. So I'll give it a D, maybe D minus, because I make myself angrier as I rant.
It's a good grade, fair grade. I'm going to go D plus. And I'm going to go D plus for a few reasons. Number one, like you said, we did start the year very competitive. We were hanging with almost every team we played. Even the games we played against the Celtics and the Bucks were rather competitive to start off the year. We had that heartbreaking loss against Cleveland and against Dallas early on. And then, we had a few wins in there. I know we beat Chicago. We beat the Clippers. We beat the Suns at one point. We were 12-9. I think 13-10 was the Nets record. So that part of the season was at least exciting. And the way we were losing games, we were really, the effort was there. The chemistry was kind of there. Dinwiddie was still bought in the beginning of the year. Obviously, things got out of hand. I think, and I'll get to some of the exit interview quotes, but too many close game losses can kill a team's overall motivation. And I think you saw that with the Nets. They just lost way too many close games. And eventually those close losses turned into pretty larger deficit losses. And guys, stopped buying in. Dinwiddie was out of there right before the trade deadline, but he wasn't bought in the middle of the season. I know that he was defending the team's best offensive weapon, but he was lost on offense. And then, the emergence of Cam Thomas was great. He gets hurt. Our offense was in total fluctuation for a large majority of the season. The only reason I'm going to give it a D plus, and obviously we didn't end the way we wanted to end, but we learned a little bit about what the future might hold, right? We learned that Cam Thomas can be a core piece moving forward in Brooklyn. We learned that Noah Clowney, the rookie from Alabama, he has some game. He can play. Jalen Wilson, the second-round pick from Kansas, he might be a piece. He had a few moments this season where he looked like he belonged in the NBA. You also have Derek Whitehead coming. He did not play this year, but he's on the rise. So and then like guys that Marks took a flyer on, Trendon Watford, Lonnie Walker. We'll get into them in a little bit, but I do think that there were some bright spots for the Nets. Obviously, the negatives completely outweighed the positives, and that's why they get this D+ grade. But they're not in such a terrible position like a Washington or one of those teams that are just there's no hope in sight because of guys like Cam Thomas, because of guys like Noah Clowney. So D+. D+ for me. You stick with D or D- for Nick?
I'll stick with a D-. I mean, I like how you're 2 grades above me technically, but you spoke a lot more positively. But I agree. The outlook on a few players is good. I don't think it's enough though to go beyond the D grades.
Yeah. So I want to get to the new head coach, but before we do, there were a lot of exit interviews. So we didn't record Fireside Nets last week. We were on a week break. We're coming back with this end of the regular season episode that we're bringing you. There were a lot of exit interview quotes that I found really interesting that I wanted to break down. And there's 2 people I want to credit with these quotes. Eric Slater at Eric Slater, ERIK SLATER_. He's a Brooklyn Nets beat reporter for Clutch Points. He actually has his own Nets podcast, Believe in the Nets. But he provided some really great quotes on Twitter because I wasn't able to watch the exit interviews. So these were several questions that he asked. And then I also wanted to shout out Brian Lewis. There's 1 or 2 quotes in here from Brian Lewis as well. So here's some quotes from Eric Slater. And there's my alarm that
I thought that was like quote. And here are some quotes.
The quote machine. So number 1, Eric Slater had asked Mikal Bridges what he sees as the difference between his finish last year and this year. Mikal Bridges had a terrible finish. Just giving everyone on the podcast context. Last year, he looked like a potential all-star, and this year he really just looked like the moment was too big for him as the number 1 option. So Mikal Bridges on the difference between last year and this year. I didn't have the right headspace. I wasn't as strong and positive as I should have been towards the end, being so beat up mentally and lacking confidence. I think that hurt me. Nick, your thoughts on that?
I mean, he sounds like he's being honest, and that's what it looked like was on the court. So, I mean, I appreciate him acknowledging that and being aware of that. I guess the question going forward is, can he change that? And can he adjust his mindset? Can he come back stronger next season? Quite frankly, he needs to, or not only does he not have a space on this roster, I mean, his stock is sinking. If you go from a Phoenix Suns team that made it to the championship, when you're the 3rd, 4th guy, and you look fantastic, and you fit into that puzzle so perfectly, you hit every shot you need to. You don't need to be the guy because you got Booker, you have Ayton on that older squad. And then he comes to the Nets with so much hype. It almost felt, in a sense, that him and Brunson kind of came to New York to 2 different teams, but to have the same effect, right? Brunson getting away from that Mavs team that was obviously growing with Doncic, and Bridges going away from Booker, to now come to wounded teams who need a guy like that to step up. Those were the guys given those tasks. Jalen Brunson now is arguably a top 2 MVP candidate. Mikal Bridges faded away in the shadows in Brooklyn, and Cam Thomas is more of the go-to guy now. So listen, it was a big ask having him come to Brooklyn, putting him in that position to be that guy. I understand that. That's pressure. But this is the NBA, man. You want to be that guy. You have to step up when it matters most. We'll forgive you for this season. This season's over. You're not Ben Simmons. You haven't just ruined our entire lives yet. But you come back next season, you have to change that mindset, or I don't know what the future holds for him. So I appreciate his candidness, his honesty. It seems like he's self-reflective and self-aware. But as we always say, actions speak louder than words. It's one thing to be able to see it. What is he going to do about it now going forward?
This is a really tough quote for me to take in. I'm almost looking at this like when the going gets tough, he gets going. And obviously he'll have a chance to redeem himself next season. He's not going anywhere. The Nets want to keep Mikal Bridges in this organization for the foreseeable future. They want to build with him, not around him, was the quote. So for him to say towards the end he was so beat up mentally and lacking confidence, he doesn't even use the word physically there, right? This is the guy who, the Iron Man, he did not miss a single game all season. And he's saying I was so beat up mentally and lacking confidence. I think that hurt me. It's tough. It's tough. The great ones, even when they're in a cold streak, like I'd love to get Klay Thompson's perspective. Klay Thompson went 0 of 10 last night, and the Warriors lost in the play-in game to the Sacramento Kings. Their season is over. I don't know if you will ever hear Klay Thompson say I lack confidence. I don't know if you'll hear that from him. Even though he went 0 of 10, that is a tough quote for me to take in, right? Mentally, that's a totally different animal. I get it. It's hard when an entire city is criticizing you. From a mental standpoint, I understand that it can take a toll on you when you're losing and you're the go-to guy and you're not performing the way you want to perform. Fine. But lacking confidence, Nick, that's a tough way to describe the end of the season.
Yeah, I don't know. I disagree though, because I think if you did really dive into Klay Thompson's bumpy season on the Golden State Warriors, he started off lacking a lot of confidence, got benched, became the sixth
but
man.
would he say that? Would he admit that?
I think there's power in admitting that's there's something in your head, that something's going on that you have to work through. I think saying it and putting it out into the open is a way for people to actually get over that obstacle. So I disagree. I appreciate the honesty. I think Mikal Bridges, I would rather Mikal Bridges say it's a confidence issue than a talent issue. I would rather him say I'm lacking confidence than I don't think I'm the guy to lead this team, because he has it within him. So yeah, I mean, dude, you're Klay Thompson, and he's definitely touched upon that before, coming back from 2 year ruining major injuries, the ACL and the Achilles. You're going to have a mental block. I remember when Derrick Rose came back, when all these guys come back, there's mental blocks. So no, I don't think you should lose faith because he had a year where he lacked confidence. It's big shoes to fill. Like I said, that's okay to happen. That's going to happen to everyone. Are you ever going to hear Michael Jordan? Are you ever going to hear Kobe Bryant in their past interviews talk about a lack of confidence? No. Is Mikal Bridges that star caliber? No. He had a hiccup. Can he get through that? I'm okay with him acknowledging it as long as he comes back better than before.
Okay.
But who are you, fucking mental health McGee over here, to tell me that he can't say that things are troubling him? He can't, like,
time out. You're not hearing me.
You're invalidating his feelings. You're a bad person.
I acknowledge the fact that mentally it took a toll on him. I get it. If we play 10 times in a row and you beat me 9 out of 10 times, mentally that might mess me up a little bit too. I just didn't love one of our best players saying he lacked confidence in his game. That's just me.
I understand what you're saying, but I would be more fearful of that if it happened like right before the playoffs. If it happened like he has a whole season off now to get better and work on himself. If I saw a player going into like, hope we can win this one, I'm not feeling too confident. Okay, shit, fire drill, we have an issue. But I think as long as he puts in the work, this is okay.
Cam Johnson, speaking on Mikal Bridges' struggles late in the year, it was a team-wide thing. There's no worry. There's no doubt about Mikal. People are so quick to go, oh, maybe he's not who we thought he was, but he's only getting better. I got full faith in him. I'm going to react to this before you do. Cam Johnson should worry about his own struggles.
Did you say Cam Johnson or Cam Thomas?
Cam Johnson.
Okay.
He should worry about his own struggles and the fact that he was supposed to be a leader on this team, and he did not perform up to par. He's getting paid a lot of money to be a glorified 4th or 5th option on this team. I was it bothers me that Cam Johnson is speaking on Mikal Bridges' struggles. Speak on your own struggles, man. I get it. You have faith in Mikal, but you also you didn't live up to your standard of play either. So I don't know. Yeah, that bothered me.
I mean, I get it, right? If someone asks you if he got asked about Mikal Bridges, maybe the right thing to do would have said, hey, Mikal's working on himself. I got to work on myself. And I understand that could have been a more mature, professional answer. Yeah, Cam Johnson, not that he was pointing fingers, but he should look in the mirror. I agree. He had a lot to work on. I guess he also had a few moments, a few glimpses of what he could be, but he has a lot of work to put into the offseason. I can't help but think of a little bit of it's contagious. You know, they came together from Phoenix. Mikal was supposed to be the 1, Cam the 2. Mikal struggled, then Cam struggled. It kind of became this like subsequent effect or maybe even a consequence that Mikal struggles bled into Cam's struggles. But yeah, I'm not going to look into that reaction too big either. They're trying to say the right thing. They're young guys. They're trying to figure it out. Cam Johnson, I'm hoping that he takes more responsibility. I didn't watch or listen to the full interview. I'm hoping maybe there was some sound bites in there that he does realize he struggled too, because having self-awareness, like we talked about with Mikal Bridges, is the first half of the battle, and then it's fixing it and acting on it. Yeah, Cam Johnson, to me, honestly, was just as big of a disappointment as Mikal. I guess if you look in terms of the gravity they're supposed to have on this team, Mikal carries a lot more weight. But at the end of the day, you need guys like Cam Johnson. And also the expectations were high from him with having less pressure in Phoenix and him that 4 or 5 guy. He hit big shots in Phoenix and also came flat to Brooklyn. So not as bothered by the quote as you, but with that said, he needs to put in just as much work as Mikal does in this offseason.
I look back at Cam Johnson's last few seasons. So this year he averaged 13.4 points per game in 27.6 minutes on 44.6% shooting, 39% from 3. His last, not full, but closer to full season in 2021-22 as the Suns' 6th man, he averaged 26 minutes per game, so right around that 27-minute mark, 12.5 points per game, so one less point, on 46% from the field, 42.5% from 3. My point is, with such a bigger role in Brooklyn, you would like to see a little bit more than a 1-point differential. When he was the 5th or 6th option on the Suns, he was supposed to be the 3rd option on the Nets this year. It just didn't come to fruition. Disappointing season for Cam Johnson. Let's move on with a few of these quotes. Brian Lewis, and you can follow Brian Lewis at NYPost_Lewis, LEWIS. Cam Johnson on Nets' biggest failure. We didn't close out games well. There were plenty of games that if we closed them competently, they would have been W's, and there's a very thin, fine line between success and losing games in those fashions. Any reaction to that?
It's all excuses, right? I mean, I guess they're trying
This just tells me we didn't have a closer.
Yeah, but the problem isn't that we don't have a closer. It's that the guys that we have on our team should have stepped up, and one of them should have claimed that role. I mean, we don't have to go out and get anybody. I think that the answer is right in front of us. It's just who's going to step up and be that guy. We have 2 or 3 options. Cam Thomas, I think, should be that guy if you're looking at it right now. But yeah, I could see how that implies the closing thing. I think it's a lot of excuses of trying to say the right thing at the right time. But yeah, it's tough because everything they say we could pick apart, because everything they say has the caveat of we sucked this season. But as long as they're, again, pointing the finger at themselves, that there needs to be one of those guys to step up.
I wanted to talk about this Dennis Schroeder quote. I really like this. So I'm paraphrasing another quote, but he talked about getting the team together this summer as much as possible. He said that.
Couple camping tips?
He said, I'm going to try to get the team together. This is Lucas Kaplan, by the way. So shout out to Lucas Kaplan. He also covers the Nets. I'm going to try to get the team together as much as possible this summer. If they want to come to Summer League, if they want to come to Germany, they trust me as a point guard, and I love that. And he also said via Brian Lewis, at the end of the day, of course I want to stay here. I met with Josiah, the owner, his wife, his kid. Of course I want to build something special here. Everything they say, I'm preaching the same thing. And I'm the same player. I'm the same player that they're looking for. It would be great to stay for sure. Thoughts on those comments?
That's really nice. I love the bonding aspect. I think that's super important. I think in any sport, in any team job, career, in anything that involves a group of people coming together for a greater good, you gotta be close. And I mean, I think it was obvious from the start of the season, whatever chemistry they had, whether on or off the court, was completely lacking. There was just a discombobulation all around. So I love that. I love him trying to take that veteran presence. Schroeder been in the league for a while, trying to take the young guys under his wing, try to get everyone together, talk it out, feel it out. They need to gain a trust. That's what it all starts with. That's what good chemistry is. It's trusting in one another. It's knowing one another's flaws, strengths, and being able to kind of fit together like a perfect puzzle. So I love Schroeder. I love him reaching out like that. I like that he wants to stay. What him wanting to stay tells me that the system's not broken. Him wanting to stay tells me there are good people in place, whether that be administrative, whether that be on the coaching staff, whether it be Jordi Fernandez they just brought in, or the guys on the team as well. it tells me that there is something there that is worth fixing and putting the time into. So of all the quotes you read me so far, that is my favorite. That to me says, I acknowledge we got to come together. We got to work together. We got to fix a lot of this, but it seems like he has a good feeling about the future, and that gives me a little bit of reassurance.
So I have two things I want to say about this, and I agree with everything you said. Love the quote. I really like Schroeder's play this year. I think he showed a lot of fight. It's hard to show fight when you come into every single game knowing you're the lesser talented team. But Schroeder was a guy, he didn't back down from anybody. He didn't duck any smoke. I really, really, really enjoyed watching him play this year for the limited time that we did. So two things. Number one, I'm going to make a comment, then my second thing is going to be a question. My comment is, in a perfect world, I'd love Dennis Schroeder to be the backup point guard for this team. You get a legitimate starting guard, point guard alongside Cam Thomas. That's your backcourt. And then Schroeder comes in off the bench. For me, that would be perfect. And he runs the second unit. So that's my comment. My question to you is, Ben Simmons comes back, rehabs a ton. He says, hey, I want to come back. I want to play point guard. How does that work?
Would he do that?
Tough question. Yeah, no, Ben Simmons is in the Nets' plans for the foreseeable future. They're not going to move on from him. They want to rehab him and bring him back. So that is a very large possibility that he could come back and he's the point guard. And then all of a sudden, is it Schroeder or is it Ben Simmons? If you don't go get a point guard this offseason.
But even him coming back, I don't think he or his team or even the Nets would demand that he becomes that guard and that facilitator. He has a lot to prove. He comes in a sixth man role. He comes in, needing to earn his time in a secondary role, even playing, the 2 through 5. He could play any position and trying. I think Ben Simmons needs to figure out where he fits in going forward, as opposed to where a Schroeder or a Cam or a Mikal needs to fit in going forward. Whether the team looks at it that way, I'm not sure. But if you're telling me he's going to come in and want to go back to that one position, I got to see 3 months of consistent play, missing minimal games, confidence, hitting free throws. Like, there's all these things that Simmons mentally and physically needs to prove to me before I even consider diminishing Schroeder's time. When Schroeder, if anything, has put in more work and had way more success. Obviously, it's easier to have more success when you're legitimately playing on the court, but that's not a worry of mine. I think the way this Nets organization is running right now, they are not going to prioritize Simmons because of his name, as opposed to prioritizing what's best for this team. If they did, I'd be really disappointed in that philosophy and that strategy. But maybe, if he comes back at some point, really proves himself, Schroeder would be okay taking that step back for the team. Because at the end of the day, on the Lakers, on the Hawks, wherever Schroeder's been, he hasn't really been the number one guard or the go-to guy or the go-to facilitator. He's had some good seasons where he is, but lately in the past few years, he's taken a step back as he gets older. So one, I don't think they would do that until we really saw at least, a half season of Simmons being successful. Two, if they did do that, I think once it's earned and warranted, a veteran like Schroeder would understand to take a step back.
14.6 points per game and 6 assists last year in 25 games for Brooklyn. For Dennis Schroeder. All right. A few more quotes. Then I want to get to Jordi Fernandez. Nick Claxton, when asked if he's confident that he'll re-sign with the Nets. We'll see. At the end of the day, business is business. I'll have to weigh my options. I'm an unrestricted free agent, so it'll be my decision. I'll have to talk with my family, my agents, see if that's the best fit. The Nets can afford him, and I do think the Nets want to bring him back. I don't know if Nick Claxton wants to stay in Brooklyn. What do you think?
What gives you that sense?
He has ties to Memphis. He has a relationship with John Morant. Also, just in terms of everything that's transpired since his rookie season, he went from being on a team with Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and James Harden to being on a team with nobody, no superstars, and sort of this up-and-coming weird team that, yeah, they're kind of in a rebuild, but they really aren't because they want to be competitive and they're paying guys big money, or they're about to spend a good amount of money. So for me, I just don't know if he wants to stay here, not knowing where the Nets are going to go. Yeah, the Nets front office can say, hey, here's what we're trying to do. But what did they say at the beginning of last season? We're trying to be competitive. We're trying to be a playoff team. Well, they were one of the worst teams in the Eastern Conference. So if I'm Nick Claxton, I've been here for a while. This is the only place I've known. How old is Nick Claxton? Do you have his age?
I can give it to you in 1, 2, 3
25.
seconds.
He's 25 years old.
Let me do it. He's 25.
I can see him potentially wanting to be somewhere else. I don't know. I know he's liked Brooklyn and he's liked the city, but in terms of just who he's played with, the constant changing of the lineups, how many point guards has he? Nick Claxton has played under what, 3 to 4 head coaches to this point? I don't know if he was there when Atkinson was there. I think maybe Nash was his rookie season, but that's Nash, that's Vaughn, that's Kevin Ollie. This will be at least his 4th head coach, Nick.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I could see both sides. To agree with you, I could see why his stock is kind of like at its peak right now or next year. He's 25. He hasn't peaked yet. He's averaging a double-double. Like, he's a great player. He's still got a room to grow and a lot of potential. So I could understand why he's averaging almost double-double, 9.9 rebounds. It all rounds it up to 10, 12 and 9, and 9.9. I can understand why he'd want to leave. He can get a great contract. He can get on a better team. Honestly, there's always use of a big man. There's always use of a guy that can rebound, does the pick and roll well, finishes well around the rim. Obviously, aspects of his game he can improve on, but I could see it. To play devil's advocate, maybe this is the Brooklyn Net fan in me and the optimist in me, which comes out rarely, is that he wants to grow with his team. Maybe he, like Schroeder, feels like they're getting closer to that success. Maybe he feels like he's been a part of that success. Richard Jefferson, our favorite Net of all time, wanted to retire a Net, and they sent him away to the Spurs, and he ended up being cool with it. And then where did he go after that? Didn't he win a ship with the Cavs?
Yeah, eventually.
It ended up working out for him. So we love RJ. Shout out RJ. But he wanted to be a part of that regrowth, and they ended up getting rid of him after the Kidd and Carter era. I wonder if Claxton's the same. I wonder if Claxton likes being a Brooklyn Net, has come up a Brooklyn Net, has found success and lows as a Brooklyn Net. I would like to think he still has faith in this team. With that said, I could understand it going either way, and I would be happy for him either way. It almost is a little bit reminiscent of a Jared Allen situation where we kind of developed this big man into a great player only to watch him be better on another team with Allen on the Cavs right now, which is funny to me because Allen would actually be way more of a force right now on the Nets. You got a lot of big men competing for time and a lot of moving parts on the Cavs. Anyway, that aside, I could see both sides, but I would hope that Claxton would be a part of it. I guess the last thing to your point is Clowney playing better and better and better. Where does that dip into Claxton's minutes? And is that a guy we'd focus on more?
So, yeah, I get what you're saying. And the only other thing I want to add about Claxton is he went to college in Georgia. He played at Georgia, and he's from South Carolina. So going to a state like Tennessee, just in terms of where he's from and what he's known, it might just be a little bit closer to home than Brooklyn. The thing that Noah Clowney was a bright spot this year. He played a lot more once the season was a lost cause. They called him up from the G League, and he showed spurts. He showed what he can be for this team, just at the floor. And there's definitely potential for room to grow. I do think he's a true 4. I don't know if Clowney's going to be that 5. I don't know if he's big enough to bang with guys like an Anthony Davis, like a Rudy Gobert, Karl Anthony Towns. Like, he's going to be more of a stretch 4 that can get rebounds. I'm trying to think of a good player comp. I think more like a Jaren Jackson Jr. is in the cards for Noah Clowney as then, comparing him to Nick Claxton. He did not live in the paint offensively and defensively, and he can block shots. Don't get me wrong. Like, he's a very talented, athletic shot blocker. He'll definitely be a lob threat, but I don't know. I'd have to see him develop more of a post game and defend some centers before I buy into him being the future 5.
That's fair. And I guess my follow-up would be, have we seen enough of them playing together?
No, that's a big knock this year. We did not see enough of them playing together.
So I guess, yeah, it's really anyone's guess as to whether or not that would work. I would hope it would, but I'd have to see it in action.
All right. 3 more quotes quickly, and then I want to get to Jordi Fernandez because I keep teasing him, and I want to talk about him. Cam Thomas said he should definitely be top 3 in the most improved player award voting, going from barely playing to going all the way up to an 11-point jump, scoring 22 per game. In any other year, that goes noticed, but this year it's kind of gone unnoticed. I get what he's saying. it's hard to value and recognize the most improved player on a team that sucks. So like, yeah, Cam Thomas went from, scoring 11 per game on a 6 seed in the East to scoring 22 a game on a team that lost 50 games. Like, sure, he improved his play, but you got to look at guys who have really improved on winning teams. Do you agree or?
No, I think that's silly. That guy's
Okay.
Are you telling me that he implied it doesn't matter that he improved because they weren't a successful team?
He said it went unnoticed. I'm not saying he implied anything, but I'm thinking it went unnoticed because the Nets were so pitiful this year. That if they were better, it probably would have been noticed more.
Okay, that's a fair statement, right? Because you do evaluate players for MVP when they have a huge impact on their team. Like Brunson bringing the Knicks to second place, Tatum bringing the Celtics 15 games up in the first place of the East, which is pretty insane. I could understand, yes, if I asked fans of other teams in other cities, they probably were not monitoring Cam Thomas's success, nor do they probably know much about it. With that said, I don't think it should invalidate it internally, personally to Cam Thomas or to Nets fans. I think it's super promising for Cam Thomas's future. I think this only gives us hope and expectations going to the new season that he'll even be able to elevate from those numbers, and those numbers are great. It also, informs the Nets of a shift in rotation, of a shift in time, of a shift of focus on who is going to be priority, who's that fourth quarter guy. Given Mikal Bridges season, given Cam Thomas season, that tells us a lot of what we want to do going forward. Yes, I do agree, though. It is sad to look. I mean, I can't to play devil's advocate to that. The Spurs had a terrible season, but Wemby came out of the woodworks and people were watching those games. They were nationally televising those games for Wemby. You can't really call Cam Thomas Wemby. He's not 7'4" and can shoot the three and dribble. But yes, it is sad to see Cam Thomas getting a little bit unnoticed because of the lack of success of the Nets team as a whole.
Okay, so I'll tell you this. There's a list of 10 players who are the most improved players this season, updated April 16th. This was by Jeremy Block from the Sidelines Group. He has Cam Thomas number 2. Number 2 on his list. Tyrese Maxey's number 1. Number 3 is Kobe White, who had a really nice season with the Bulls. DiVincenzo, number 4 for the Knicks. Austin Reeves, number 5. Colin Sexton. Denny Avdija. Number 8, Duncan Robinson. Number 9, Grayson Allen. And number 10, Naz Reid. So he's definitely in the company. I think that the people voting should at least acknowledge him, but I just don't think he's going to win that award.
No, he won't win the award, but I'm glad he's getting the recognition, at least somewhat, from the NBA. But yeah, it's the future for Cam Thomas is bright, but hopefully the team puts him in a position to be more recognized as a star next season. If we're able to hit that 7th, 8th, 9th position, minimum play-in game, hopefully even higher, be a mid-tier playoff contender, he'll start getting the recognition he deserves for being as good as he's been. But again, we don't know if he'll have that success on a more rounded, better team. Like, will it require the offense he's been having to provide to make up for the lack of offense this team has had? I don't know.
Right. No, I get what you're saying. 2 quotes. Trendon Watford on his upcoming free agency. This is definitely a place I can see myself again. I love the fans, love New York. It was great. Now we step into free agency and see how it goes. But I definitely had fun this year. That was Trendon Watford. A very similar quote from Lonnie Walker in a relatively similar situation. I'm just looking for a home. Just looking for a team that finds me valuable. I want to be an important piece for a team that can consistently play. We'll see how things go. So kind of wild how this season transpired just in regards to these two guys. The season started. Lonnie Walker was hot, 6th man of the year candidate. Trendon Watford would see some time here and there, but he didn't really have a consistent role. Season progresses. Lonnie Walker gets hurt. Watford still doesn't see much time. Walker comes back from injury. Vaughn gets fired. Kevin Ollie steps in. All of a sudden, Lonnie Walker becomes an afterthought. He barely gets time. When he's in there, he's not really scoring. So he becomes sort of the 9th or 10th guy on this team, maybe 8th or 9th to be a little bit more generous. And then Trendon Watford, all of a sudden, he becomes a 6th, 7th man towards the end of the season. He gets a few starts, and he starts looking like a really nice young piece. And both these guys are relatively young. So, I mean, if you had to choose for the Nets to re-sign one guy, Watford or Walker, who are you going with and why?
That's really hard. We were so in on Lonnie Walker from the start. Like, we were huge Lonnie Walker guys. He was great in LA, even in crunch time. Like, he was getting shots instead of LeBron because he was so hot at some points when he was a Laker. I am not in the Nets office. I don't know what warrants Lonnie Walker to take a back seat when given the opportunity in the past, he seemed to really step up and be a great player. So it's hard for me to determine anything that's not based on a recency bias. And the recency bias is Trent Watford is played better, had more time, had more of an impact, showed more potential. So it's hard for me not to go with the latter. But if you're telling me right now, just based on historical evidence, I'd say Lonnie Walker, because I've seen what Lonnie Walker can do if given the opportunity. I don't think this has been enough of a test. He didn't get even enough burned for us to even judge. And when it came to the fourth quarter and Cam Thomas was the guy, Lonnie didn't even really show us anything nor put in a position for us to judge what he could do. When you're not a good team, it's really hard, right? When you're not a good team, you're constantly rotating, you're testing, you question everything from a back end standpoint. So you're constantly just throwing guys in there to see what they can do. A guy like Lonnie Walker wasn't getting his usual minutes. So I'm going to stick with Lonnie Walker, want to give him another season. I don't want his career to end up being a journeyman because I do think he could have an impact on a good team. But right now it does seem like he's getting tossed around. He's getting thrown into trades. He's good. Or just getting picked up by random teams. And I would like to see him get more of an opportunity.
Yeah, I think that for me, just the way the season ended with momentum, I think the Nets are going to pick up Watford and keep him under contract and probably let Lonnie walk. But I do think that, and we're going to get to him in a second, the new head coach should have a say in which player will work more for his scheme. If Jordi Fernandez is going to come in and work with Sean Marks on this sort of new look Nets team, he should probably have an idea of the guys he wants. And defensively, I don't know. Both those guys aren't great. Offensively, they're effective in different ways. Lonnie Walker can score from three. He can drive to the lane. He can hit the mid range. Watford is a very high IQ player. He can get to the lane. He can hit the floater. He does make the right read. Most of the times he has a little bit of a turnover problem. Trendon Watford does, but there were so many moments where the Nets just couldn't buy a basket, and Watford would just put his head down and get to the lane and shoot free throws. So I don't know. I lean Watford, but I won't be surprised either way. It's just the way that the season ended for Lonnie Walker. I just don't know if he has a future in Brooklyn, but he definitely has a future elsewhere in this league. I would like to see him find a home as well. All right. Those are all the quotes, the exit interview quotes. I think we touched on a lot of them. But, Nick, we have to congratulate the newest Nets head coach, Jordi Fernandez, currently an assistant coach for the Sacramento Kings, who just beat the Warriors in the 9-10 game. They're going to face the New Orleans Pelicans in a win and get in scenario in a few nights. Before you react, Nick, a few fun facts about Jordi Fernandez, the Nets' new head coach. He was born in Badalona, Spain. He is 41 years of age. He is a defensive specialist. He coached for Denver under Michael Malone and in Sacramento under Mike Brown the last few seasons. And the Nets got him before the Charlotte Hornets had a chance to hire him. Take that, Jeff Peterson.
That's cool. I like that a lot. I was reading a little bit of his bio. Mike Malone, who he worked under on the Nuggets, said, I think one day Jordi will be a head coach in this league. He's been a head coach nationally, G League, paraphrasing here. And he really spoke on his behalf. So I thought that was really promising. I think Jordi, did you mention this is the head coach of the Canadian national team?
I did not.
He's got a great resume. And I really like this wave that the NBA is doing towards younger coaching. I think they resonate with the players more. I think you've seen the success of, Willie Green, Jenkins, Mazzulla, all these young guys kind of coming in and refreshing these either mid-tier or low-tier teams and kind of hitting all the right buttons and growing with them. And I think that's been a testament to these young coaches and what they could do for teams. So this is promising. I like this guy's energy. I like his resume. He's got testimonials on his behalf. So all signs point to this being the right decision and a better direction than we've been in the past. So I'm all for it. I'm excited.
Any change is always exciting. I love, especially when a team is not good, I love the Nets Twitter reactions of just being like, this is the guy we wanted all along. This was the consensus, the best option out there. It wasn't. None of you guys knew who he was. I didn't know who he was. Let's be real. We don't know every single assistant coach everywhere in the NBA. Now, obviously, when they hire him, you look into his background, you can see that players like playing for him. Like Sacramento is a team that's turned it around the last few seasons. If the Nets are going to go after a guy in that staff that they believe was a significant factor in that and turning around that organization, I'm all for that, right? That makes a ton of sense. I saw a few clips of him talking to players at practice, of him talking to the Canadian national team, and he just seems like one of those young guys who gets it, right? He seems like a guy that's young enough to relate to players. But overall, we know nothing. I'm excited. I'm excited that this is a guy that we're not bringing up from the organization. Jacques Vaughn was already an assistant coach of the Nets, so he got the job. Same with Kevin Ollie. Steve Nash was a friend of Sean Marks. This is sort of the first hire since Kenny Atkinson where you can look at it and say, all right, this isn't just a friend of our general managers. This isn't someone that was an assistant coach and they're just getting an opportunity because the head coach got fired. This is a really nice option and someone who we might be able to grow a culture around in Brooklyn. So from that standpoint, it's cool. And then obviously I like the fact that we did this quickly. We didn't wait. We didn't, draw out this long process. Would I have liked to see Coach Mike Budenholzer as the Brooklyn Nets head coach? Yeah, I would have. I was pretty adamant in the last few Fireside Nets episodes in saying that I wanted Coach Bud here, but that's why
Richard Jefferson.
Yeah. That's why Sean Marks still has the role because Cy believes in him, and whether or not you agree with what they're doing right now, they're trying something, and it starts with Jordi Fernandez. So congratulations to him. Congratulations. Welcome to Brooklyn, and let's get to work. That's all I got. All right. A few more things we can finish out. Congratulations to former Net Blake Griffin on his retirement, known for his dunks in Los Angeles, his efficient play in Detroit. During his time in Brooklyn, Blake Griffin was most notably known as the leader of the Blue Collar Boys, where him and Patty Mills would try to draw charges, and that was pretty much it. I think that everyone who rooted for the Nets that season loved Blake Griffin. Yeah, he had some struggles from beyond the arc. He wasn't the scorer he used to be, but tough-nosed player. Had some moments in the playoffs where in that Bucks series where he did help out KD, who was pretty much playing by himself with a James Harden on one leg and no Kyrie Irving. I look back on Blake's tenure with the Nets, and I absolutely loved it. I thought he was an excellent role player with us. He really bought into his role, and I wish him nothing but the best in retirement.
Me too. I love Blake Griffin. He came in the NBA, an absolute superstar, was really accepting of side roles and veteran roles and taking a backseat as he got older, was always a great hype man, was always very supportive of his teammates, ended up becoming that guy who'd give you a few minutes, draw charges, get fouled, head to the line. I respect the hell out of Blake Griffin. I like him as a person, and I think he had a great career.
All right. Quick around the league, Nick. The Lakers defeat the Pelicans. Zion gets hurt. I told you to turn on that game. Great finish down the stretch. Some huge plays by D'Angelo Russell in crunch time. Another former Net. Brandon Ingram did not play in the fourth quarter after Zion Williamson went down. He is coming back from injury. And Willie Green said that, that was the plan to not play him in that fourth. He liked the unit that they went with. Any chance that Brandon Ingram might be a future Net?
I would love that. I was watching that game like, why the hell isn't he in right now? And I read a lot of tweets about his struggles and the game's momentum as it was, because I only jumped in kind of with 5 minutes left, and they were going. Even McCollum wasn't playing great, so it was a little bit confusing to me. Obviously, Zion went out, so you would have thought they wanted that one more kind of offensive juggernaut in the game. But hey, Send Ingram our way. I always thought Ingram was kind of what do they call him, like Baby Durant. Like he's tall, he's lanky, he could shoot that mid range lights out. He grinds. I would welcome that with open arms. I think then we'd have a big question of where we move some of our other guys. Like where does a Bridges fit in with an Ingram on the court? But hey, I always like watching Ingram. He's got that X factor for sure.
If you were to sign Nick Claxton, Ingram would be your 4, McHale would be your 3, Cam Thomas is your 2, and then your 1 is Schroeder or Simmons, and then you bring Cam Johnson off the bench as your 6th man, and you still develop guys like Noah Clowney, Jalen Wilson, Trendon Watford, and Dariq Whitehead. That would be sort of an idea.
I'm game.
But that is also, I don't know if it would be a sign and trade or how that works or what Ingram's contract looks like. But yeah, he would, if you put him on the Nets, he becomes, if not the best, the second best scorer after Cam Thomas. Because I think at their bests, I think that Brandon Ingram is a better scorer than Mikal Bridges.
Absolutely agree.
The Sacramento Kings defeat the Golden State Warriors. Warriors were just never really in it. Tough game from Klay Thompson. Steph Curry was just trapped the whole night, double teamed. Nick, I know they want to bring back, or they want to at least try to re-sign Klay Thompson and bring back the core 3 of him, Draymond, and Steph. Do you think this is the end of a dynasty in Golden State, or do you think they might have 1 or 2 years left where they can stay competitive?
I think it should be the end of the Klay Thompson era. I think Steph and Draymond should go forward as Warriors. I saw a really interesting piece of, as Steph gets older, you want a 25-year-old to come in, be that new guy to work alongside Steph, so that when Steph retires in a few years, you're kind of building already with a little bit of ground laid. I don't think they'll get rid of Klay. I think it would be in their best interest, but I think the way Kerr spoke about him in the postgame interview, they have a loyalty. They've won 4 ships together. I almost think their pride is going to get the best of them, and they're not going to embrace change until they literally have to, until these guys like either retire or are forced out in some way. But I think it would be in the Warriors' best interest to move on from Klay. I love Klay. He has not been the same since he come back from injury. Yesterday was just kind of like icing on the cake of when Steph is getting double teamed and Steph can't find a freaking lane to save his life. Draymond doesn't shoot the ball. No one else, Wiggins was off. Klay has to be that guy, and he's not that guy. So sadly, to answer your question, I think they should move on. I don't think they will.
All right. Yeah, I want them to give it another go. When the Nets are out of it, I love rooting for the Warriors. There's just something about those 3 guys, the way they play. They don't hold back. As crazy and as exaggerative as and just downright dirty as Draymond can be, I know at the end of the day that they want to win, and I respect the hell out of that. I like I always like the guys they bring in. Like I loved DiVincenzo was there for a year, but who else? Who were the? Oh, Chris Paul was there. Chris Paul was kind of a waste of space. I like the draft picks. I like Brandon Podzinski. I like Trace Davis. Jackson. I think both those guys have decent futures in the NBA. I like Jonathan Kuminga. And you still got Kayvon Looney. Like they still have pieces. If they can make a few moves and bolster that backcourt and figure out a way to get Curry some scoring help. Like I thought of a lot of guys they could have used in this series. Like they could have used the Jordan Clarkson, right? They could have used like a microwave off the bench. They really didn't have that. So I'd like to see them go after it. And I don't think it's the end of the dynasty. I think that, Dunleavy Jr. didn't come here. He didn't take this job to rebuild yet. Like you still have Steph, you still have Draymond, figure it out. All right, Nick. Jonte Porter, lifetime ban. Did you see this?
No.
So Jonte Porter has been banned from the NBA for life. He was betting on games through a friend and had bet on the Raptors to lose. This is the guy that was under investigation for because there were people betting unders on his points, and they were betting ridiculous amounts of money and winning, and now he is banned from the NBA.
It's like the Pete Rose, except not good. I just looked it up. That's pretty wild. I mean, good. Honestly, if you're throwing games or you're trying to have any impact on games, how sad is that, though, man? You're 24 years old and you have potential to work your way up into this league. That is such a bitch cop-out move, man. Get him out of here.
Yeah, I agree. And then finally tonight, 76ers home against Miami. Who do you got?
Oh, you know, I want Embiid to get a ring. I like Embiid. He's fantastic. But I have seen in the past, 3 years now? No, 4 since the bubble, that Jimmy Butler in crunch time is not a guy you mess with. And they are only getting better, the Heat. I love Bam. Duncan's back from having a few off seasons. Jaime Jaquez, I fucking love that dude. He's got so much potential. He's only a rookie, and they want him on the court when it matters most. So I'm going to take the Heat because of what I've seen in the past few years is no matter what, you can never, ever, ever, ever doubt the Miami Heat from rising up when it comes playoff time, even in play-in games or even in situations where they really have not shown during a regular season that they're a top team. They always end up looking like a top team in April through June.
Yeah. Who do you think's a bigger threat to the New York Knicks, the Sixers or the Heat? You're going to go Heat?
I'm just going to go Heat all the way through.
Okay. I think that the Sixers win this game tonight. I think that the Sixers are a bigger threat to the Heat. I think that the Sixers are a really talented team if Embiid stays healthy. Role players like Kelly Oubre Jr., Nick Batum, they haven't had these guys in the past. Buddy Hield is on that team. Like, they have a lot of weapons. And to headline, with Maxey and Embiid, I just think that they can give the Knicks a lot of problems. I'm not sure if the Heat can just turn it on against the Knicks. I don't think the Heat have that magic this year. I know every time I bet against them, I look like an idiot, but I'm tripling down. Like, I don't think that the Heat do anything. And I'm not even going to get into the Atlanta Chicago game because I don't care. I think both those teams will lose to the loser of Miami and Philly.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
All right. Final words on the regular season, and then we're going to close out the podcast. Nick, I'm a Nets fan. I'm looking to you. I'm saying, Nick, you're a semi-permanent co-host of the Fireside Nets show. Just what are your thoughts on this final season and moving forward? Can you give me any words that I can take home with me?
Disappointing, at times confusing, chaotic, disheartening, suicidal. No, I'm just kidding. Those are the words that strike me on the season. But if you're going to tell me going forward, I have a little bit of hope, a little bit of optimism. I always appreciate an organization for good or bad that is always willing to turn over employees, that is always willing to try new things, that is always willing to rotate players in and out, rotate coaches in and out when times are tough. You have to do that. You have to be able to move forward, and you can't die on a hill. You can't die on certain things, and you have to kill your darlings, as they say. Get rid of people, even if you like them, if it's for the greater good in the future of an organization. So I would say the season as a whole, I'm going to say disappointing. The future as a whole, I'm going to say mild optimism.
Okay, first of all, I don't want to kill anyone.
It's a saying.
Yeah, I'm not a murderer. So
like when you say when in Rome, are you going to be like, I'm not in Rome?
I've been to Rome.
Fantastic. You're so worldly.
All right, so my final thoughts on the regular season and moving forward. The season was a failure for Sean Marks. Based on the expectations that he laid out for Nets fans, based on the fact that we were supposed to be competitive with this group, with this unit, and the fact that we had to lay off our coach midseason after a 50-point loss, this was a failure. This was devastating, knowing the potential that we thought and hoped this Nets team had. Moving forward, I'm excited for this new chapter with Jordi Fernandez. I don't know much about him, but I like the fact that we went out and we got an integral piece of a Kings team that last night looked incredible. And you see the development of guys like Keegan Murray, Keon Ellis. It looked great yesterday. Obviously DeAndre Fox and Sabonis are a great 1-2 punch on that team. And defensively, they hounded Steph. They just dismantled the Warriors. So I'm excited to see what Jordi Fernandez can do. I do think that last chance if you're Sean Marks. This guy's like a cat. He's got 9 lives. You know, there are a lot of people, a lot of owners after the Harden trade, after the Ben Simmons not playing, after the Kyrie and KD trades, who would have said, whoa, we're going to make a change here. We need a new guy. There's obviously a relationship, a strong one at that, between Joe Tsai and Sean Marks. So last chance. This is your last life. If you're able to build something here, great. But I cannot have another season like this, that they're just this bad, this disappointing, this many ups. You know, there weren't even a lot of ups and downs. There were just so many downs. It was like 3 or 4 ups throughout the season. Yeah, that's it. Optimism it's not as high as I think a lot of people on Nets Twitter, but let's see what we have. That's all I got. Let's see is the mantra.
That's a wrap.
All right, guys. Thank you for listening to another edition of Fireside Nets, episode 194. I'm Spen Harris. I'm your guy. He's Nick. He shows up when he wants. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll talk to you throughout the offseason. We'll give you updates. We'll be back sooner rather than later. And as always, Nick, I'll catch you on the fireside, brother.
Peace.